Welcome to the Association 4.0 podcast, your association's no-fluff playbook to navigating and thriving in Industry 4.0 or the digital marketplace. Each week, we bring expert insights to help you and your association stay ahead of the curve.
Hello, my name is Sherry Budziak, and I'm the host of the Association 4.0 podcast. I am also co-founder of .org Community and founder and CEO of .org Source, a consultancy to associations. Today, my guest is Matty Rubenstein. Matty is the founder of Aspaklaria, an association executive advisory firm, which he started about 15 years ago. For most of the time, he has been an interim strategy partner to many senior executives across IEEE, the Institute for Electronic and Electrical Engineers. For those of you that don't know, IEEE is one of the largest professional associations, generating almost $500 million annually, has almost 500,000 members, and over 1,000 staff. He has an enviable portfolio of strategic engagements under his belt, ranging from non-dues revenue opportunities to organizational transformations, next generation membership to online education. As well as his strategy portfolio, Matty has been delivering tactical engagements across IEEE and other organizations, coaching executives, framing issues, creating solutions, and leading teams. Welcome, Matty. I know this is going to be an exciting conversation. Your extensive relationship with IEEE is such an impressive organization. It sounds fascinating to work for an association that boasts Thomas Edison and Alexander Graham Bell as early members. So welcome, Matty. Thank you for joining me today.
Hi, Sherry. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So Matty, tell us about IEEE, your company, and your professional journey.
I was always one of those kids that used to take stuff apart. And that was really my entry into engineering, and somehow that translated itself into an electronic and electrical engineering degree from Manchester. And from there, I took a 15-year relationship with Hewlett-Packard, who's another industry behemoth. I like to work for the big companies at the top. And I had just great opportunities there. I started off in a sales position, customer-facing, problem-solving. I then went on into a consulting position. I then went into an education position. And from there, I went into a project management position. It already sounds like I'm queuing myself up for all the parts of an association management career. So on the way, I ended up in HP's project management office. And from there, I became a senior business analyst for a digital transformation company that was later acquired by EMC, another industry leader. And one of my colleagues from there took over a project management office at IEEE, and he brought me in to create the back-end system for a very small division of IEEE that looked after meetings and conferences, a small one that looked after about $140 million worth of conferences. Again, I'd fallen into another industry behemoth, and I thought that everybody was this size. One of the things that happened during that engagement was I actually got to interface with almost the whole of IEEE, every function I was in touch with. And as my later mentor said to me, he said, anything that happens in the association industry in the next 25 years, you've already seen it in IEEE. That's how big IEEE is. And I had the opportunity to then move into solving IEEE problems rather than technical problems. And it led me through all of this journey of another 13 years across another 13 to 15 executives. And I was solving real problems, non-dues revenue before it was called non-dues revenue. I was working an education portfolio, which included an online university. I dealt with my first AI project probably 10 years ago using Watson. That's how long ago I did. Yeah. And it was just fantastic opportunities to be ready, and it stayed with me, and now I find myself to be establishing myself as a leader in the industry, and it's a really exciting time. But there's a lot of thanks to a lot of hard work by a lot of people who brought me to this point.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it is an association, especially, of course, one that large, to get exposure to so many things. And so that'll makes you a great consultant now, huh?
Yeah. Somebody actually accused me of being spoilt for having such an opportunity when she was managing 3 different associations and with her background. So I recognize from what people say that it was just an amazing opportunity.
Yeah, that's great. So tell me a little bit about how you came up with your company name. It intrigued me. Give me a little bit of background about how that came about.
So the name Aspaklaria, it's a Talmudic Aramaic term that describes a round piece of glass, and sometimes that piece of glass is reflective, what we call a mirror, and sometimes it's a lens. And I think that really describes not only my own personal growth of balancing the what's going on inside to what's needed outside, but also it became a founding tenet of Aspaklaria, which is I think a lot of people, when they think about what they're going to do next, they look out to the market and they say, oh, that's what the market needs, that's what the market needs, and we'll go and do it. But really, something that's always lived with me and lived with Aspaklaria is you can't just do anything. You have to be grounded in reality. You have to be grounded in what you're good at least what you have a semblance of being good at. You may be able to perfect it. You may be able to adapt it. But really, deep inward knowledge of what you can do and what that can lead to before you go outside and say what I want to become. And that's Aspaklaria. That's the dual nature of a mirror to look inwards and a lens to look outwards. So that's the background to Aspaklaria and its name and me as a human being.
I love that. So Matty, as somebody that is really in tune with engineering and technology, what challenges and opportunities do you see for associations on the horizon?
So I don't think it's any secret that associations have been hit hard by technology. We're from a background of bringing people together, educating them, informing them, helping them to launch their thoughts into the world, launch their inventions. And I don't think it's any secret that the internet and social media has wrestled that away from the association space. So with that comes a question of what's membership and its place in this millennium. Although associations are, the in-person meetings they're growing again, that's great. And it looks like that's a core business that's not going to be affected, even though we thought COVID might put a nail in that coffin, but I don't think it's true, at least not for a while. And certainly, despite how wonderful the new mixed reality headset is from Apple, I'm not sure that we're ready to climb in that to have meetings. But I think altogether, in terms of everything, although I think the engineering and technology is part of the answer, I think it's also part of something that's forced us to once again revisit that question, which is, as an association, what's our unique value proposition? Not trying to keep up with what you can do on another platform, not trying to be better than what's on another platform, but what is it that we've got that they ain't? And that's, I think, that's my biggest issue today, is associations. What is the association it?
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. It's interesting. I don't think I've told you this yet, but my daughter, she's 22. She just graduated from college. She's going to go work for an association. and her background's in marketing. And of course, I made her join the American Marketing Association because that's what you do, right?
Right.
She's like, what do I do with this? And I was like, but they understand the need for that commonality and education and group of kind of like-minded, trying to do similar things. But it's just kind of interesting to watch her journey, because as you said, like, she is thinking about the value, and going to this other organization and wanting to work for them. She's thinking about their philanthropy and the good that they're doing in the world. And that's why she wants to belong to that. So that whole, I think, sense of belonging, regardless of technology too, is really important. I don't know. It's just an interesting journey. It kind of reminded me too, Betty, that back, we both went through that whole, Y2K, and everything needed to, was going to like explode, and
The end of the world. Yeah.
the end of the world, and association is going to be irrelevant. We're still hanging on there, right? We're still hanging on.
Yeah, it's I think something you mentioned quickly, but purpose, mission, passion, that's something that doesn't exist out in the for-profit world. That's something that is uniquely association, and philanthropy is an offshoot of that. But I think that's something else that labels as a secret special power of the association space that we shouldn't forget.
Yeah, I think we do a lot of times. So a different question, like, what do you think leaders should do to prepare to take advantage of events? So
I think when you've had a winning formula for over 100 years, and I think you cast off all your vestigial organs, things that you're not using anymore, and everything becomes totally focused on what you do, which in our world is membership, conferencing, publications. So what else can we do? I don't know. I've never really thought about it, because over the last 100 years, I've just really focused and cut down, and that's all I can do. And I think it's very hard for associations to try and think or see any other way than the way we do it now. And I think also, in terms of the silos, I mean, anybody who's been involved in consulting in the association space, the silos are our strength and our weakness. We run side by side independent businesses, and that's what we do. Membership owns the member, conferences owns the conference, publications owns the publication, and I think that could be what's got us here, but I'm not really sure it's going to get us much further. I think you're seeing companies who are household names just disappear. Car companies. Whoever imagined a car company would close? Saab. Whoever thought Saab would close? I mean, I grew up with Saabs. They were desirable cars, and they're gone. And I'm not talking about DeLorean. That's a different question. That's a smaller company. But I'm talking about household names are going to disappear. Look out on the street today, and there's Chinese car companies. Who the heck ever heard of a Chinese car company? And they're out there and they're doing well. And I think that the difference with associations is we're talking about people, and we're talking about their needs and their desires. And I mentioned the passion before, this super potent focus. And what is it? They want to change the world. They want to do good. Now, either that comes from refining ourselves as engineers, sharing ideas, and so on and so forth. But I think we've come to a point now where the differentiator for an association is no longer going to be its member benefits and its member services. I think it's going to be more about its purpose, its mission. And why do I say that? Because look at what's going on in the for-profit world. Who would ever have imagined companies would go to bat around social issues? And we're seeing it. We're seeing Target. We're seeing Budweiser. I'm not going to discuss the issue, but the fact that these companies are going to bat over issues and taking losses or whatever it might be, changing plans, isn't that associations mojo? Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? Isn't that our world? I feel like the for-profit world's wrestled away the single most important part of associations, and that's changing the world
interesting.
And mission.
Yeah.
So that's what we need to keep an eye on.
Yeah. It is interesting. You're right. So let me ask you, do you have thoughts on tactics and tools that leaders can use to navigate disruption?
I gave those away earlier.
Yeah.
They're tied up in my name. Internal knowledge, deep internal knowledge of what I can do and what I can't do, and a knowledge of the problems, big problems, not little problems, big problems, nexus problems, members, public, industry, government, big problems that associations can marshal together all of the resources, play the safe havens. Do you ever stop to think about why you can have there's a question around standards. How can you have all these competing companies sitting around a table agreeing on something? It's anti-competitive, but that's exactly what the joy and that you get from owning a standards organization is. You can bring people together outside of the worries of anti-competitive behavior. There's rules, but standards organizations can take a role to bring together Apple, Alphabet, and Meta at the same table with government to solve a big problem. The industry can't do itself. Meta can't go and knock on Alphabet's door and say, "Can we talk about this?" They'd be in court tomorrow. So standards organizations are a phenomenal opportunity. We have the fact that if you think about the model of an association, it's like a bicycle wheel. In the middle, you've got an association. The spokes are the members, and around the outside are all of the industries and environments that they all exist in. And I think for the last 100 years we've been worrying about the spokes. How can the members get the most? But now I think it's a question of how can we bring through our members? How can we bring these industry issues to the table? And we're at the center of it. Associations are at the center of this, and I think that's really the outward looking question. Now, how you do those things in detail, obviously that's a bigger question, and that's, I think, something that the larger, the ASAEs of this world, the ESAEs of this world, I see them as marshals of playbooks and advisory for other people who have broken the mold and forged new ways of working, to share how they've done things. Because that's another amazing thing about the association space, is the sharing that goes on, because it's absolutely unique. Yeah. Because the civil engineers can share with a healthcare company. You know why? Because they're not competing, right? But they still need to, and there's the amount of support. Even as a consultant, I've been trying to find commonality and talking to people. Everyone talks to everybody. There's no secrets. Yeah. Nobody's like, I can't tell you that. That's how I run my company. It's like people give it to you on a plate. Yeah. And that's phenomenal. And that's another thing that we have. So bringing that all together, navigating the disruption is know yourself, know what's going on outside, and do something about it.
So you talked about, we have a 100-year-old model and associations. What would you like to see top association leaders do differently?
Anybody who knows me, like, he's going to say membership. He's going to say membership. I asked a question on LinkedIn the other day. I said, even on the introduction, you said, IEEE, it's a $500,000 organization. It's got 500,000 members. What's 500,000 members mean? What's it mean? Is it something to do with revenue? Is it something to do with gravitas? Is it something to do with, I don't know. And I really, it obviously means something, but in and of itself, it's not a measure of anything in particular. It doesn't measure our reach. It doesn't measure our revenue. It doesn't measure anything. So the question is why do we spend so much money? It's the most expensive product to sell.
It is.
Small B2C. And where did I learn this? I learned this in HP many years ago. There was an $8 billion company inside the $48 billion company that was the original HP that made this test equipment that was originally made by Bill and Dave, Hewlett and Packard. They made a device for separating the stereo tracks on Fantasia. It needed a very high quality thing, and they made it in the famous garage. And then all the other stuff that was in the HPE portfolio was pretty much all spun off from what they discovered from the stuff they were selling to the test people. What is this? What are we testing? This computers? What are they? You know, and suddenly they became computer company, and then they became a printer ink company, and so on and so forth. Now, when they spun off this company, everyone was like, why are they doing this? Why are they doing this? And we found out that a consultant had come in and said, well, let's look at the business models. So if you look at the business model of Agilent, that was what was spun off into Agilent, it was very low volumes, a very high priced, very customized instruments that made a lot of profits. And what was the rest of HP? The rest of HP was pilot high, sell it cheap. Printers, scanners, and it was boxed. They said, how can two companies like this live together? And it was a very big eye-opener to me because I never really understood, much about business models before that. And suddenly I realized, inside the association industry, we've got an opportunity. We could partner with industry and do larger size transactions and become much more important to them. What could we do? We could do data collection. We could do testing. We could do all sorts of things that industry can't do on its own and generate large amounts of money in very few transactions. But what's the opposite? The opposite is membership. Extremely expensive to sell, at very low profits. Mm-hmm. And really, if you look at the larger organizations, people are moving away from it as a source of revenue because it's so unpredictable. So I think people still mix up engagement and revenue generation. And where do they mix it up? In membership. And I think we've just got to stop doing this. It's engagement is about volunteers, it's about passion, it's about getting things done. These are hugely valuable resources. Revenue generation is about making money. The two have nothing to do with one another. That's what I want the associations to stop doing.
That's great. There's a quote for the day. So let's talk a little bit more about association business models changing. So what do you think this, their new environment of the world, like, how do you see association business models changing?
Again, I think I've become a bit predictable in my young age. Because the audience is shouting, he's going to say industry, he's going to say industry. And then we talked about this a little while ago. You told me how you worked on a conference and they kept the industry people away from the members.
Yeah.
As if they were bad for each other.
Exactly.
I've seen I've been told, friends told me that they were working on a project with people at an association, and they started talking about industry, and someone turned around and goes, "You're going to the dark side?" It's like, hang on a second. How did we get into this situation? How did we get into this situation of calling them the dark side? And also, what is our unhealthy relationship with industry that involves, a hat, because basically all we do is we go there and try and get philanthropy. Will you sponsor this? Will you sponsor
Yeah.
that? Give us some money for this. Give us some money for that. And like, as I said, you know, we're the center of the world in terms of people and industries in our chosen areas, you know, whether it be, whether it be radiology in healthcare or civil engineering, it doesn't matter. We're in the middle, and we know, and we're connected with all of the players and all of the stakeholders. And we know the industries because our members work in them. Well, why don't we take a real seat at the table? As I said before, start treating industry as a partner that values us and we can bring value to, and we can reap the rewards. And that's my soapbox.
So what exactly do you think that, you know, vendors, partners can play in association success? I mean, and I guess, how do you think that associations, can you talk a little bit more about what you think, how they need to change?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's all, what do vendors and partners play? I mean, well, you know, I was very blessed to have met some people who are working in M&A, mergers and acquisitions. And, you know, I was trying to move into that area many years ago and got grilled during an interview. And I learned a lot during this interview. It's terrific. I didn't get the job, but I learned a lot. And it was, it's quite simple. If you've done this deep dive and look into yourself and you've come up with, this is what I'm good at, this is what I'm bad at, and this is what I'm kind of in the middle. And I want to go after an opportunity. Well, what do I need to be good at? And what do I need to be good at? So there's going to be a difference. And that gap analysis should reveal where you need to grow. Well, there's two ways to grow: build it or buy it. And I think in terms of somebody actually said it to me a couple of days ago, associations are platforms. We think of platforms as being technology things, but what's a platform? A platform is something that people to get up on and to shine. And that's what associations have been doing for years as human platforms. And I think all that's changing is that we now are moving into a more technology-focused world. We've got our iPhones, we've got our computers, we've got our tablets, watches, everything, cars. And the question is, you know, well, what role do I play and what platforms do I need? And I think that there's a huge number of very, very capable, very, very smart people that have come from the association space, recognizing there's a problem, and who have now become not the dark side, but those people who are going to enable us to buy in, scale, and at a reasonable price, to become what we need to be to pursue our own missions. So I see vendors and partners playing a huge role, because there's so much change that's going to be going on that we don't have that skill. That's not part of our skill set, and that's okay. Yeah,
we need them. As I always said, we always tell people, we're like, why are you trying to do this by yourself? Like, you don't want to be, you're not a dev shop, or, you know, you don't have to build it. There's people out there that are, you know, but so I guess top of mind, or at least for a lot of people right now, is the whole discussion around AI. So
AI, oh my gosh, the end of the world, the end of the world. Woe
Again, another end of the world. So do you think it's going to impact your career, AI?
Is it going to? Too late, already has.
Yeah.
You know, I showed my wife how to use ChatGPT a few months ago. Just showed her, you know, I picked it up and I'd learned how to ask a question and get, like, you know, a 10-page, a 10-step outline for a report. I was like, oh my gosh. And I showed it to my wife. She goes, you just got that from asking that question? I'm like, yeah. She goes, what else could I do with it? She's like, I said, well, you can ask it to edit the document that you've got in front of you, to be like a newspaper article. She goes, really? And she does that with everything now. Everything is going through this filter. You know, it's like, it's just free. And people are like, you know, oh, but everyone's going to lose their jobs. It's like, my wife never had anybody doing that job for her. This is just new stuff that you can do, right? It's and I think that's also what we're going to see in associations. It's not a question of, oh, you're taking my job away. It's like, no, it's new stuff. This is unbelievable. No organization, despite its size, is able to take a PowerPoint deck and suddenly produce a podcast, a video, a post for their blog, a post for LinkedIn, a tweet, all of that. Boom, done. That's AI. That's what AI is about. It's all about stuff that I couldn't do and I now can do. And yeah, you're right. There's going to be some people who are going to be doing jobs that can be done with that. But nobody trusts the output of AI yet. I wouldn't put my name to any AI generated stuff without going through it with a fine-tooth comb. And also, AI is all about prompts and asking questions. And you're always going to need people who know how to do that. Right. So, you just have to transform yourself from, well, you know what? This job can be done by AI. Okay, well, how does AI do it? Now, you think your boss knows how that works? No. So become essential. Charts, AI is in its infancy. So, you can tell them, yeah, you're right. It can do this, and that, but it doesn't do it very well. Oh, you know all about this? Yeah, okay, fine. So I'll become reliant on you. And the people that are going to learn to live with AI and use it as a tool, it's like, you're right. There's a bunch of people out there who are sitting on typewriters going, what the heck happened with computers? And, they can sit on typewriters, fine. But it's an evolution. I don't think it's a revolution. I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah, I agree. Just myself, like, you're trying to like brainstorm something. And so I'm like, okay, go, put this in ChatGPT. And then I'm like, oh yeah, now I can, now I've, instead of spending an hour thinking about that, ChatGPT did it for me in 5 minutes. Now I can take it from there. Right. Like there's still that real human component, as well as it's not going to give you exactly what you need, but it's kind of this head start. But it's interesting because I'm seeing people are already starting to figure out, like, what are the policies and procedures that we need around, AI? And I'm like, you guys don't even know what that is yet. I'm like, you're not even using it. You're not even using it.
So one of the things that I scratched my head about was, in terms of associations, embracing AI, people are like, well, that means that I just have to put all of the publications that I've had from AI into all the publications that I've produced and all the papers that have been produced by my members, my expert members for the last 20 years, and I put them into the AI and I go, AI, do their job. And it's like, that's not going to happen. It's expert networks. That's not generative button. AI.
Yeah, it's still not the easy button everybody has been waiting for, right?
But the point is that everybody thinks, well, what do associations do? We do content. It's like, yeah, you don't do marketing content like the vacuous stuff that goes on Facebook to try and sell a can of Coke. I'm talking about the real deep invention and stuff and thought leadership. That's associations. That's the front center of associations, and it will always will be. And I asked a question to somebody about 3 months ago, and I said, what sort of expert is going to allow their expertise to be put into a machine that replaces them? And what are we seeing? We're seeing the people whose stuff was taken to train the AIs are coming back and suing. They're saying, you don't have the right. You don't have the right to take my invention, my creation, and use it to train your machine so that you can replace me. We're already seeing. So we're still seeing it. We're seeing it today, which is, we don't even know what questions to ask about AI. It's like, well, suddenly you can't train it because nobody's allowing you to use their stuff to train it. So, where's AI going to go? A colleague of mine suggests that that's another opportunity for associations, is they own a lot of the stuff to train generative AIs, and they'll start their own generative AI. Mm-hmm. And that's and that'll be their world, because you can't take our papers and train your AI with it, because it's ours. So it reminds me of way back when, the whole idea of every house would have a server in the front of it for the internet, and that completely changed, and we had to change the whole model of it. But it's like, I see AIs being specialized because you can't train, and I think it's a legal thing that we're going to see come up, which is, you can't take my expert stuff and then give away what you can say is similar to it. I'm not going to allow you to.
And Matty, this whole conversation, I was just thinking about something that all just came together for me. You were talking about vendors and collaboration and working with those types of partners. I was just talking with and creating collaboratives. I was just talking to a vendor the other day that has this idea, to your point, about getting a few associations together to create its own AI platform with its own content in some sort of collaborative. So Absolutely. Again, it was kind of his, but I think that, and you and I have lived through this through our careers and our journey, but looking at like, what is the opportunity and what could be, instead of the reverse of, let's start creating policies and let's be afraid of this, and it's going to take over the world.
But also right? what you're seeing is I was talking to someone, they said, well, who's better placed to do all of the policing of AI than associations? It's like, okay, that's a role, but it would be nice to be the owner of it as well. The problem with it is we can't think like that, because we're stuck in this 3 parallel machines: the membership machine, the conference machine, and the publishing machine. And we don't understand that inside those, if we broke, first of all, if you break down, I'll give something away here. Okay, guys, write this down, get your recording going, because this is something that we use in Aspaklaria with our clients, and you're going to get for free because everybody shares in the association industry. So here it is. Stop thinking about your association as 3 parallel machines that never talk. And if they do, it's like, taking a bucket from one and pouring it into the other. Think of your association as an entire set of processes, and think of it as one great big sausage machine. It has inputs, which include the door that the staff go through, the connection to your members, the mail, email, servers, any input. Where do you get your, conferences? They're an input because you gather materials there. Now, what happens to them next? Okay, let's chart them as they go through the organization. This is something that I was able to do from my background in doing this system for, as I mentioned earlier. So look at it as an entire set of, you have inputs and outputs, and you can say, what happens between the inputs and the outputs? You can say, oh, well, I can break that down into 5 more inputs and outputs along the way into sub-steps. And I can say, oh, if I look at an entire process end to end, and just add in capacity and ability to sell, and then you've got all the pieces you need. You've got inputs, outputs, translations or translations, transformations, capacity and sales. You've got all of the things you need. Now, if you put that all together and you're able to look and break down every micro transformation you can make, that's a competency. Now you can look at it and say, oh, look at that. We've got 25,000. We've got an asset which is 25,000 links to industry and academia. Okay, terrific. What are we going to do with those? Well, why don't we turn them into inputs, right? Instead of talking to the members, let the members talk to us. And then we'll take that data and we'll use IT to capture it. And then we'll use someone in finance who's going to do some analysis of it. And then we'll get someone in marketing, at the front end. They're going to ask the questions that's going to get the data. And then we're going to find someone in publications who's going to be able to publish the answer. Okay. None of that is within the normal. No, all of that wouldn't fit into any one of the original silos of membership, conferences, and publications. But suddenly you've got something you can do that industry can't do. They don't have 25,000 people. They don't have that. They might try and build it, but you've got 25,000 members. So this is what I mean by knowing yourself deeply inside. And then once we know what we are deeply inside, we can start to say, what can we use these little pieces if we replumb ourselves? Take, A1 and connect it to C3 and use an input as an output and an output as an input. And suddenly you've got a completely different machine. But that's only if you consider your whole organization as a single entity, as a single process, as a single machine that has micro transformations going on all the time. And that's how, when I say knowing yourself, that's how you can start to think, okay, now I know what that is. What can I use AI along with what I can do to do something else? And I'll give you another clue. So we think in terms, I'm going to tell you, AI is a translator, right? We think in terms of translation. So what are you going to do? Okay, well, that means that I can now sell my same publication in 147 countries because I can translate them all, boom, boom, AI. Very, very clever. That's first of all, you can't sell the same thing all over the world because they have different needs. But why didn't you think about it? I told you, turn the inputs to the outputs. Suddenly you've got a connection in China that wants access for their materials in the US market, and you can translate it and you own that market. Associations don't think that way because they can't turn it around. They can't plumb it. They can't replumb. And that's what I want to see the associations think like.
That's great. That's great advice, Matty. That was this was such a great conversation, and I'm sure that our listeners have gotten a lot out of all of your insights today. So I really appreciate it. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Okay, so my name's Matty Rubenstein. Of course, incredibly difficult to spell Rubenstein. So if you put in on LinkedIn, you put in hashtag strategy Matty, M-A-T-T-Y, strategy Matty, you will get all of my posts because that is hidden inside every one of my posts. And from that, you'll be able to get to me.
That's fantastic. We'll also put it in the notes on the podcast. And so I really, really appreciate all of your time today. It was great. And I look forward to talking with you again soon.
Thank you, Sherry. It's been a pleasure being here. Good luck, and I'll see you again soon.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and discovered tips and information that will add value to your leadership style and your association. .org Source specializes in positioning teams for success with solutions for technology, strategy, and marketing. Please contact us at info@orgsource.com or visit www.orgsource.com to find out how to keep your organization on track to Association 4.0.